All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Say What I Mean, and welcome to Polly with us. Once again, I'm here with the homie Heen. How you doing today?
I'm good, man. It's a cold and rainy day in DC. We had spring this weekend, and now it's like dry, nasty, and miserable today. But I'm here to talk, man. Welcome, man. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. You should feel magical being in DC. You got your boy Fifth Magic for the Washington football team.
Oh, man, come on. Fitzmagic, man. Yeah, I'm not a. How is he still? How is he still in the league? Like
He,
that. If you want to talk about like some good racism, that dude's still in the field. It's always
I
astounding
mean,
to
he's
me.
a good backup quarterback, though. I give
He's
him
going to be starting, and he's getting like 10, $11 million for this
that.
year.
Yeah. I mean, y'all didn't have much to choose. So what y'all had? Alex Smith that
Yeah,
had was playing on a broken leg that almost got amputated, and
yeah.
so y'all. I mean, y'all cut Dwayne Haskins, so
Well, I mean, that's yeah. He
yeah.
needs to kind of go.
Yeah, so I don't know. But you know what's funny? I actually like the name, man, the Washington football team. It's so simple. It actually kind of piff. I actually kind of like it.
It's a very if like I don't know if you follow soccer like that, but it's a very like European English football club like type of name and stuff. A lot of the clubs there are like Manchester United Football Club is like the name of the club. So Arsenal Football Club. I think it's fire. I don't know. I know they're not going to stick with it because we need like
They
mascots
should.
and logos, but I think it's
And
fire
then,
too.
the initials WTF. Come on, man. Come on, man. That's fire.
Well, it's WFT, but if we did it TF, that'd be kind of fire.
Oh, yeah. You know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Damn, that messed it up.
We fired
Yeah,
him.
that
I'm not
messed
gonna
it up,
lie.
man. Gee. Anyway, we gonna pretend like that didn't happen. You know,
My
when
bad.
I lose or the point is lost, we just skip it. We don't ever talk about it again. That's getting edited out and everything. So on the politics now.
All right.
On the politics now. We had to get a little laugh in before we get to something serious.
All right.
Because man, these last few weeks, and forget the last few weeks, man, like the last few years, but
It's been a
uh,
hard one.
again, the return of mass shootings. I mean, it never really went away.
Hmm.
Because there's several like what you consider mini mass shootings that happen all the time
Hmm.
that the media don't pick up. But this leads to a bigger conversation when it comes to gun violence. What's going to happen? Is anything going to happen? I know we was talking off air, and it doesn't seem like either one of us is too optimistic about anything really getting done. Why do you feel that way?
Well, ever since Sandy Hook happened, I think it was at 2013. The year it was 11 or 13. It's a blur now. It's a long time ago. I'm old and washed. But when that happened, and those babies were murdered, like little kindergartners or first graders were murdered. That was the moment where this country should have been like, all right, you know what, this is bad. Um, People around the world looking at us like we're crazy. We have children, you know, who weren't even able to like who weren't able to do anything, who weren't even able to walk across the stage and graduate the elementary school and stuff, let alone like high school or live a life or whatever. They didn't do anything. Um, for that to happen, that gravely and that starkly and that really like nasty, like it was just nasty. It was a very nasty situation, and for nothing to come out of that at all, like no guns, right? No gun control bill at all, nothing. Um, it felt like the soul of the gun control argument was ripped out right then and there, and there's nothing you can really do about it. This is the perfect. You had like little young affluent white kids from a very like suburban neighborhood, and they were massacred, and nothing happened. Um, when that transpired, and we didn't move anywhere. For me personally, I was like, all right, well, I think the gun control argument is dead. Um, we've had worse incidents since then with the Florida
Vegas.
school. Well, Vegas, the Florida school, Marjorie Stone school.
Mhm.
We had Dylan Roof walking into a black church and sitting through a fucking Bible study, and then deciding to pull out a gun and murder all the people that were in Bible study. You have all of this has happened since then, and nothing has moved the needle. And it's not moving the needle because this country, for some reason, particularly a certain set of people, think of guns as like as everything, as like their life, their masculinity, their religion, their God is in the gun. And and we talk about mass shootings just from the standpoint of the ones that hit the TV screen, but gun violence is just like a daily occurrence in so many people's lives. I mean, I think there's like some ridiculous stat that like I can't, I'm not going to recite it, but like it was a ridiculous stat about how many Americans are afflicted by gun violence every year. It's a high number, not just from random shootings, but domestic violence. Suicides have gone up because of the availability of guns now. Where like just think about that, like somebody that if you took the gun out of the conversation and had somebody want to commit suicide or had those thoughts, there's a whole train of work to get to that point to want to kill yourself. And having a gun there is so instantaneous and so quick and so sudden that it's over. Whereas like you might be able to walk out of it if somebody's able to like if you're able to like think of all the steps you have to do this. A gun's just like one quick boom, it's over. And that's been on the rise in our country like the last like 20 years or so, along with like partner violence with the gun, and of course just regular day-to-day like violence with the gun. And now we're seeing a mass shooting. So I don't know, it just feels spiritual, like just a very like it just feels like the soul of the argument is just like the gun control argument is like dead after the Sandy Hook incident and tragedy. And then also yeah, it just feels like it's just we have a yeah, it just feels like it's a dead cause now. I feel like it'll happen. We'll send our thoughts and prayers out, and then that's it.
Yeah, unfortunately I agree with you. And I just want to make one thing clear. When we talk about gun reform, most people, there are some, but most people is not talking about banning all guns.
Yes.
Um, I'm for gun reform, and I'm a legal gun carrier. Like I'm licensed to carry, but I still for gun reform because if you need a license to drive a car, if you need a license in some places just to fish, it doesn't make sense not to have a license for something as dangerous as a gun. A lot of this stuff is simple common sense. Am I saying that doing background checks would automatically end all gun violence? No, I'm not saying that at all. I don't think that at all, but I think it would prevent some,
Mm-hmm.
would keep some people from getting weapons. So we need to do it. And most Americans don't support banning all guns, but most Americans do support a simple background check.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't even get that passed. I know right now in Congress there is a background check bill, and because of these mass shootings that just happened in Atlanta and then in Colorado, maybe it gets some more attention to those bills. But again, we still have the filibuster, and even if they reform the filibuster or magically get rid of the filibuster, I still don't think it will pass because you
No.
still have some very pro um, Democrats that I don't think will vote for it, any type of background check. So it's very difficult. And then you mentioned Sandy Hook. I totally agree with you. And remember, um, the sitting congresswoman got shot in the head in Arizona, and nothing happened. And a couple of years ago, you remember
Steve
another
Sclissy.
member
Steve
got
Sclissy.
shot in D.C.
Yeah, Steve Sclissy.
Still nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
So
He was like,
even
"Give me my gun."
even when they get targeted themselves, it's like it's such a frenzy, and it's such like I don't know, a cultish vibe around guns in this country, it's hard to get anything done. And I usually a little bit more optimistic, but um, I gotta keep it real. I don't know what we could do. And then on top of that, we have an extremely conservative court right now,
Hmm.
especially the Supreme Court. So I don't know. That doesn't mean you should give up. But at this point, on a federal level, I think states can do a lot of stuff. But the problem with the states, if the border of the state next to you is not following the same guidance, it really doesn't have the effect. And what it does for law-abiding citizens, it make their process harder. And for people that want to that try and do something nefarious with it, make it easier. So
This it's hard. Like I know, Chicago, for instance, has like really strict gun policies, like really strict gun stuff. But we always hear about Chicago and guns in the news because Indiana, it's like it's they have like very relaxed gun laws, and so it's easy
yep,
to go next door, buy your guns in Indiana, come to Chicago and do what you need to do. That's never talked about. Like you said, we need like a federal policy on guns. We need like a national gun registry, gun license and gun registry, where all your guns that you purchase is put into the database so people can know. Like it's like a car, like you have a license for your car, driver's license. I mean, like a license plate for your car, something along those lines.
yeah.
Uh, it's never gonna pass, obviously, but that we need stuff like that to be able to like curb this stuff.
I would go even further than that, to be honest. I would put a lot of the onus on the gun manufacturers
Yes,
because they
yes,
get off scot free.
yes,
Um,
yes.
how do all these illegal guns get into the street? One of the reasons is these gun manufacturers not held accountable.
Hmm.
How they getting stolen, how they get into these streets. Um, they just got a complete pass with this. And too often that happens in this country. Big business and big corporations, they have protections and they can get away with everything. The ATF is not doing what they need to do on this particular issue. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree. If there was a way to make gun manufacturers liable, and also, excuse me, bullet manufacturers liable, um, for what's going on, you'd see a big change. But like you said, we have a conservative Supreme Court. A lot of these, even in Democratic like senators and Congress people, they may have like people that are making guns in their states and aren't interested in, like, that's one of the very few American jobs we still have is making guns.
right.
Um, and they wouldn't want to like push up too much because of that as well. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like I hate to say that like there's no political answer. I mean, there are answers obviously, but the way that we have this very cultish, like you said, addiction to guns in this country, the way that the Second Amendment has been like perverted to mean something completely different than what it was originally, what it originally means, and also what it was interpreted as for, like, the first literally 200 years of this country. Yeah, I just, it's hard for me to like sit here with like anything that can find some solution. I wish there was one. I don't know what type of event would take place for us to see things differently, but yeah, unfortunately, I just think the gun control argument is probably like a dead,
I
it's a
would
dead
have
rubber.
thought that event would be Sandy Hook, but that obviously didn't happen,
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, it's a dead rubber.
um, I'm at the loss. And then it basically didn't hit these mass shootings. Didn't basically hit all aspects of life. Already hit the movie theaters, it hit
Mhm.
schools, now a grocery store. And then it been shootings in malls,
Walls, yeah,
other shopping centers, and is nothing
restaurants,
deals. Yeah,
restaurants, um,
yeah.
playgrounds.
Playgrounds, religious institutions, all sorts of stuff. And yeah, nothing moves the needle when it comes to this. And again, like I said, I'm not pro banning guns, but I think there is some common sense. Like, um, it goes at some point. What is the cutoff, right? People argue that there should be like they hesitate of the government controlling that type of stuff. And I understand the argument, But it gets to the point. I ask people, all right, I agree, handguns shouldn't be banned, right? I don't think handguns should be banned if you go through the legal process. Then it gets more questionable when you get to stuff like ARs. You know, should ARs be banned? That's that's very, I don't know, that's very borderline-ish. But then at what point is it cut off? Some people just want the wild wild west. I mean, should rocket launchers be legal? Because of some of these gun buyback programs, like in some cities, people actually didn't have rocket launchers they turned in. Like, how do you get a rocket launcher?
How do you get a rocket launcher?
Um, at some point, should people be able to have grenades? I mean, should you be able to have Molotov cocktails? I mean, should you be able to have flamethrowers? Um, if you have the ability to make bombs, should you be able to do that? I mean, at some point, you get into territory where, all right, I understand you have a certain philosophy, but any extreme is dangerous on either end, but some of these gun advocates don't see it that way.
Yeah, they've and it, like it's really wild what's happened too, because like I was intimating earlier, the argument for gun control was like people didn't have guns like this before in this country. It's like literally a thing for the last 40, 45 years. This wasn't a thing in this country at all. It was very hard to get a gun, and now it's like very easy to get a gun. And shoot, I mean, Joe Biden now is talking about having an assault weapons ban, or bringing it back, because that was a ban in this country. There was a ban against assault weapons in this country for a very long time.
Brady bill.
Brady bill back in '94 when I think it was '94 when that was signed. Right, 93, 94 was Clinton's first term. That was like a real legislation that was popular. It had bipartisan support from both Dems and Republicans. And now, is there any chance that it happened now? Nah. Yeah, it's a way to show this is like a show of like the collapse of the downfall of American society. Like, this is like one of it. It's just these guns and the proliferation of it, and how accessible it is now, and how for life of me, I can't understand why anybody would need a gun that can shoot 100 rounds in like 10 seconds. Like, I don't understand the need for that. Like, who are you going to war with? Like, that's like a war thing. Like, what if you shoot an animal? If you're hunting and you shoot an animal with that many rounds, like, what are you eating? You know what I mean? Like, you're not. There's nothing to eat there. Like, it's the meats are all like sprayed everywhere. I don't know.
I want to jump in real quick because you remember. I don't know if you remember this, but you remember when the Vegas shooting happened, and for a brief, for maybe 3 days, Trump was talking about being in bump stocks. That was used in the Vegas shooting. You remember the gun supporters? That was one of the few times his own supporters turned on him, and he reversed almost immediately. I thought, because when he said that, I was like, okay, it's not background checks, but could we even? That should be easy. That didn't even pass.
Like I said, it's like we've been saying, it's a dead conversation. I just don't know what it'll take at this point. I really feel bad for the victims that lost lives in Boulder and Atlanta last week.
Definitely.
It's unfortunate that this happened. Not just those two states as well, but all over the country. Anybody that's lost their lives to gun violence, to your families and so forth. I feel for you, because these are things that this nation could prevent, and doesn't seem that there's any interest to prevent it. Yeah.
Right. None at all. And unfortunately, I don't see it changing anytime soon. So,
yeah.
Well, we'll see. Do you have anything else you want to add to this subject?
Sorry. Yeah. It's a hard one. It just happens all the time. You had these conversations, and then wait for it to happen again in a couple of weeks or days or months.
Yeah, it's funny because this dude, I guess he is Muslim, apparently, right? you would say, oh, maybe this because they hate Muslim right wingers hate Muslims. Maybe this could be something different, but no. There's been other shootings by Muslims. There've been shootings by black people. You had the DC snipers, and they really don't like black people at all, obviously. Yeah. But even that doesn't move the needle.
Yeah,
nothing. I think. I literally think there's nothing that will move the needle on this subject for a good portion of this population.
The only thing I can potentially see happening is if, like, God forbid, but like somebody would like walk into the U.S. Capitol with like one of these assault rifles and like mow down like some Congress members. I would hate that, obviously.
I don't even know if that would move.
That's the only way I can potentially see it happening, but I don't. I just don't. I think they'd be like, well, I think that the way that things are working in this country, we have accepted deaths and accepted casualties and stuff, and we've accepted that gun violence is just part of parcel for being an American. You're gonna have to deal with gun violence, and even if you like were to mow down congressman members during like the State of the Union address, we do like token stuff like put flowers around, wreaths around their seats, and then we just move on business as usual. And the NRA would tweet out the Second Amendment again, and nothing would happen. So I
don't even think that would move the needle. Because remember, I forget the congresswoman name. Her husband just took her
Kelly,
spot.
I want to say Megan Kelly. That's not her name, but Kelly, Congressman. She's Representative Kelly.
Yes, and her husband, Senator Kelly, now represented Arizona. He just won. Remember, she got shot in the head.
Got shot in the head.
Yep. Sitting congresswoman, and that didn't move the needle at all.
And not only that, she's also pro-gun. She's actually also pro-gun.
Yeah. And you remember a few years ago, I think there was a Republican congressman that actually got shot in D.C. and that didn't even move the needle. So I'm not even sure that would do any good. What I think the next line would be, they would argue that, Congress members should be allowed to carry guns in the Capitol. So remember, that's the solution to the school shootings. The Republicans was pushing that teachers should have guns. So, yeah,
they're eventually going to go to like, we need to train our children to shoot with guns and carry guns to school. That's where it's going to go to. Where we'll be having kindergartners with like being allowed to carry guns in the class. I can because of two factors. One because it's making money for the gun manufacturers because that's what they want, more guns in the streets. And two, they don't want to pass anything, so they think that the good guy with a gun thing, that we have like vigilante justice. This whole perverted belief that the West was won with guns and all this stuff that wasn't even true, but we have this mythos about that in this country. That the only way to solve that, if you are at Sandy Hook, is to have like a kindergartner square up with a shooter and shoot a gun, shoot that gun at a shooter and stuff. It just doesn't make any sense. But that's what they will go to.
Yeah. What's funny? You mentioned that, but did you ever watch that show, This Is America, by Sacha Baron Cohen? I think that's his last name, Borak or whatever.
Yep.
It was actually a Republican politician that was suggesting on that show that,
I remember that
children should carry guns. So when you said that, I mean, some of them already been said that. It sounds ridiculous, but
that's what they want. That's what the more money for gun manufacturers, the better. So the more merrier. They would definitely want kids to have guns. And if somebody doesn't get a cookie, you pull out a gun to they're not trading fair at luncheon or whatever. That's where it's gonna go. And I don't know. I don't know. I kind of don't want to talk about this anymore. I'm sorry.
It's depressing, right?
Yeah.
Progress coming.
Yeah.
Which not depressing, but it's annoying. One of my cats is at my feet. It will not let me do, like, it is crazy. Like, I don't know. Me and my wife have 2 cats, right?
Okay.
And one of them is real laid back, chill. And the other one is a nuisance, right? Like, I guess he got like a 6th sense, and when you don't want to be bothered and you doing something, that's the exact time he come. Like right now, he like by my foot, like doing all sorts of stupid stuff. So if you see me like fidgeting and looking down, that's what happened right now. But anyway, we gonna move Um, Something that I think is positive, at least I don't know how the audience is going to feel about it, is that the state of Virginia
Mm.
became the first state that was part of the Confederacy to outlaw the death penalty in the state, to ban the death penalty. That to me is very positive and huge news. The death penalty is rooted in there we go, the cat again. It's rooted in racism that was like with the penalties for black people against the penalties for white people. And just beyond that, there's so many innocent people
Mhm.
that was on death row because of DNA evidence now and the Innocent Project. Turns out they didn't do they didn't do it. They've been on death row for like 20 something years. So I'm not a bleeding heart liberal, but I don't support the death penalty for that because I think the Innocent Project have it about like this guy right here. I'm
I
telling you,
see him. Yeah, he wants to
the
get on. He wants to
Innocent
talk about that
Project,
song.
yeah, the Innocent Project has it at around what 2 to 3% of
Hmm.
people that's on death row is innocent. That's
Hmm.
like what 2 or 3 people out of every 100, and there's no coming back for that.
Yep,
So, what's your thoughts on this?
I agree, man. Like I even if you even just because we just how we know like the way the justice system works in our country with like the need to convict somebody of a crime even if they haven't done it. So, um, like the whole Dave Chappelle joke about like sprinkle the crack on them and make it seem like it's their fault or whatever. Like that's a real. We've proven that's a real thing with our law enforcement. If the conviction numbers are high because they need to find somebody to be convicted of the crime, and they'll pin it on anybody just because. So this is for low level stuff, obviously, like low level like drug offenses, non-violent crimes. Shoot, even like even slightly more serious crimes like burglary and all that stuff. The need to pin a crime on somebody's like just the way this country system works. So we know that's a major thing with like the system in general, and there's flaws in it in that regard. Now you're taken to the stakes of the death penalty, and a person's committing this crime, they will be not just serving life in prison, but potentially losing their life. Yeah, these are you take it to that stakes. Like, yeah, if you know there's a fault in the system, something's wrong there. You shouldn't be executing people when there's a fault in the system like that. But and I know recently, like the NFL player, the former NFL player Will Smith, he was murdered. Well, he was killed in self defense, and he was killed. The guy who did it was defending himself, and he was convicted of life in prison on like in Louisiana, which had like I think mandatory like majority court decision for a capital crime like that. Like it didn't have to be unanimous. It had to be. It was like I think like the decision was like 10 to 12 or something like that, and that was enough to convict this person of death penalty, which is crazy. And that was thankfully overturned by the Supreme Court, and he was released of it, the crime and stuff. But still, the point is like, excuse me, when you have like when you're lowering the standard of something that's so high stakes, like a capital crime with the death penalty is like a potential thing on it. You can't have like you got to be 100% about this. This isn't like a 3%. Well, we have 3% fault system. You can do that with like vaccines. You can do that with like other stuff. You shouldn't have that with like a capital crime. Yet that's there. And yeah, I'm glad that Virginia has done that. It's a really big step, and it shows you how much the state of Virginia has changed from even when I was a little young person growing up in DC area and thinking about Virginia to like now where they are the first state that in the old Confederacy that were able to pass a law to prevent death penalty. That's a great first step. I wish other states would think like that, but it's hard because there's this it's the eye for an eye thing. Like whenever this happens, you take that person's life as a way to find retribution, even though no one ever finds retribution from that. You can talk to people that have like lost people. They still think about them. It wasn't necessarily justice. That's just the old our liberal thing. But when you have something as serious as taking someone's life for their crime, you can't have 3% fault in the system. You just can't, and that's probably even understated. Like it's probably a lot more than that. There are probably a lot more than 3% of people that are on death row right now that didn't commit the crime, yet they're sitting there right now, potentially about to lose their lives. So I hope more states are able to follow that. But yeah, it's a great first step that Virginia's one is the first state in the Confederacy to ban the death penalty.
Yeah, and this is a tough issue right here, just because me and you are pro abolishing the death penalty, but the majority of Americans, especially nationally, don't agree with us. And I get the reasoning. This is one of the issues where I could see the other side, um, especially if you lost somebody close to you to a vicious and senseless crime. You want some type of retribution, and sometimes people feel like life in prison is not enough. And I won't tell those people they wrong, just because something like that happens. I can definitely understand it. But my reasoning is what you said and what I said before, but a few other things too. Number one, I think the government in the country should represent how they want their citizens to act. So if I can get, for example, this, if I can get charged with assault, if I go outside right now and I get in an argument and I just punch somebody in the face, right? What will happen? I'll get charged with assault, right? That's why I don't get people, like people that agree with that. I don't get why some of those same people would support a preemptive strike in offensive wars, because the same thing. I think that if you want your citizens to act a certain way, your country have to act a certain way. I'm pro self-defense all the way. Like, if I have to take somebody's life to protect my family, I will do so. But there's a line with that. Now, say somebody break into my home, right? If I neutralize the threat and they run out, I can't chase behind them and chase them down the street, go and kill them because they're no longer my home. At that point, I become the aggressor. And at that point, I can get charged. Once you have a threat neutralized, and they in handcuffs, I'm comparing this to the state, the threat is already neutralized. Is there a need to really kill them where they're not threatening more? You could say they're a threat in prison, and that's a whole different thing where we need prison reform too and how prison operate. But I go off of that. If you want your citizens to act a certain way, the country need to act a certain way. I hate hypocrisy, and to me it's highly, highly hypocritical when it comes to that.
That's America, man.
Yeah.
We are a hypocritical nation. Do you think
Right.
there'll be more states that'll start pushing back against? I know that Virginia is now a state that's done it, but do you envision more light blue / purple states start pushing back against the death penalty?
It depends on who controls the legislature.
Okay.
Like the thing about Virginia, the Dems could control of the state Senate.
That's right.
In the House, along with having the governorship. That was the key thing. And a lot of these purple states might have a Dem governor, but you still might have a Republican legislature.
Yep.
So if they control the House, the state House, the state or state House or state Assembly in the state Senate, along with the governorship, maybe. Yes, I can see that.
Okay.
I don't see it ever. I won't say ever. Right now, I don't see it happening on a federal level.
Yeah, I can't see either. That's like you said, it's way too much of a most Americans support it, and I can't see like a national candidate or a congressperson advocating for that. I just can't.
And here's the other thing too. I'm pay double advocate with this too, but a lot of people think it deters crime. Now, no studies suggest that.
Yep.
no like peer review, real concrete evidence that the death penalty deter crime here in the U.S. Because most of the crimes that you know that the death penalty applied to are heinous crimes that most people is not thinking, or if they are thinking, they plan not to get caught. Um, so it's no evidence like with the numbers that deter crime at all. Now, people will push back and say that's because people be on death row too long. They could be on death row for 20 years. Do you think if they sped up the executions, that would deter crime more?
No. If you like you mentioned it, like people who don't commit crimes thinking they're gonna get caught. You know what I mean? Like that's not even like a factor. Uh yeah, nobody's committing a crime thinking they're gonna get caught. I have a tough time believing that death row if we like made it like 2 years, um that'll stop people from committing crime. Nah, you can go to jail tomorrow for some of these crimes people commit right now, and it's not deterring them from committing these crimes. You know, they're still going to commit the crimes. I think what deters crime, and this is me being the progressive again, but like is actually like investing in your citizenry and not investing in prisons.
Uh,
That's just a whole different conversation. But
no, I
uh,
agree.
but yeah, I don't think that speeding up death row um, judgment, I guess is the word, like the final judgment of putting people down. I can't see that deterring people from committing heinous acts because that's what's in their. That's what they're gonna do. They're gonna do that, and they don't think they're getting caught. Especially, or if it's like one of those instances where it's a passion thing, where it's in the heat of the moment, and you commit a murder or whatever crime that's applicable to death penalty. It's not even, you're not even thinking about like the consequences at that point. You're just doing it, right? I don't see it. I'd love to see a study of it to prove me wrong, but I can't think about that. What about you?
For penalties for crimes that actually the death penalty apply for, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think the only way would deter crime is like petty crimes, lesser crimes. It probably would deter those like stealing. You know how some of those other countries steal something, they chop off a hand. That might deter crime, but like that would never apply to this country, and it shouldn't either.
No.
It is shit. I'm not. Don't let me be clear. I'm not advocating for that. I'm not
I
advocating for
still
that at all.
so
But for like,
little 5-year-old now that's like that's stolen a candy bar now loses their hand because because they
or the
suck.
parent lose it because they wasn't old enough or something like that. Yeah, something like stuff like that. You crack down hard like that with those type of crime. I think it could deter it, but I don't think that's worth it at all.
Yeah.
But for crimes that actually the death penalty apply for, because if you're getting a death penalty, it's a heinous crime.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I don't think that would deter, because most of the time, like you said, it's either a crime of passion or it's people with sick minds wanting to do something like these mass shootings, right? A lot of these mass shooters plan to die anyway.
Mm-hmm.
They doing this with their plan is not to get taken alive, and that's another thing. When the subjects is non-black, and they're killing everybody, somehow the police can take them in without shooting them in alive.
Talk
That's
about it.
very interesting to me too.
Talk
So
about it. Yeah.
that's another interesting tidbit when it comes to that. But that's neither here nor there. We know that. I'm off that now. But when is and when the shooter is non-black, they're just having a bad day.
Always having a bad day. They just want to rid the world of filth, sex
Yeah,
filth, the sex addiction, whatever we can find as an argument to excuse white people
right.
in the
But no,
crime.
I don't think for um, crimes that the death penalty really apply to or
Mhm.
applicable to, it would. I don't think it would deter
Yeah.
at all.
Like I said, we said earlier, good Virginia, man. Like I think this is a great thing that they've done in their state to push against that. I think now, like in the DC area, DC, Virginia, and Maryland all don't have death penalty in their jurisdictions. That's all good. So um,
Right.
even though people, it's obvious like why people support it, especially considering like the religious element of the eye stuff. Um, the more work that I think the Innocence Project does at educating the public about this, about the rates of people that are innocent that are actually currently serving in prison right now for crimes that are either like life in prison, death penalty, or even like small crimes around like non-violent crimes as well. The more that stuff can get out there, I think the more that we can potentially start changing people's minds on the death penalty, and hopefully maybe start thinking about investing in citizens more than investing in
Yeah.
prisons. That's
And,
a pipe dream, obviously.
right. And there's a great documentary on Netflix. It's called The Innocence Files.
Hmm.
If you have Netflix, check that out. It's about these cases, real cases where people was on death row or was in prison for years on end, and turns out they was innocent.
Hmm.
They was proven to be innocent through DNA evidence. And just look at the Central Park Five. You remember them?
Right.
People remember them. Like what happened? Like, yeah, that's the danger when it comes to the death penalty. And one more thing about deterrence, like we have a country right above us in Canada, right?
Hmm.
Their system's completely different. Like people would say is much more lax than ours with sentencing and everything. And even some of these other industrialized countries that the death penalty is outlawed, right? The U.S. crime rate is way high.
Yep.
Now, there's other factors and variables to go into that, but that goes to what we're saying. There's a lot of different reasons why crimes are committed.
Hmm.
Um, there's social economic reasons. When the economy is better, it shows that usually crime goes down. You do investments, crime will go down. And there was significant studies and serious evidence like stuff like lead and gas
Right.
had
Right.
a major effect on
Right.
crimes, especially in poorer neighborhoods where it was
That's
really
right.
at. Especially with not only lead and gas, but lead paint, the paint chips and stuff like that. There's
Hmm.
scientific evidence linking that to violent behavior and development issues with children. So there's a ton of stuff. It could be a whole show just around those issues alone and what contribute to why the crime rate goes up and down.
There's and it's funny too because when you mentioned the lead paint theory about crime and stuff, and I remember around the same time crime was dropping in this country. Um, Rudy Giuliani was taking credit for the broken glass nonsense in New York and stuff, but
Mm,
the real streamline was like the lead paint stuff and how like taking that out led to like the drop in crime in like a lot of inner cities and stuff. Like I said before, we just hope that I think the key really is to like broadcast more, use platforms like this to broadcast more, and let people know a little bit more about like how crime is being deterred and also like how many people actually are in prison right now for a crime they didn't commit, and letting those stories get out a little bit more than what's currently put out there. I doubt you'll see movies here and there that's a little bit more entertainment based, and you'll see like uh uh um you know blips and bobs come out here and there about people getting released. I remember when I was in college, I talked about this before in our pre meeting and stuff about how like a class I took, uh, one lecture, I guess lecturer was a guy that was in prison for 20 some odd years, for a murder he didn't commit. And he was identified even though it wasn't him and so forth. But and he eventually was able to get out due to like the Innocence Project and so forth. But he lost 25 years, 20 some odd years of his life in prison for a crime he didn't commit. I think the other thing too is there needs to be more education on actually what's going on in the criminal justice system. Uh, Actually, how like it is very easy for somebody to get convicted for a crime they didn't commit,
mm,
or just how um, it's kind of like a factory. It's just people can mill through, and there isn't really a thought about particular cases. If you're very fortunate to have the right lawyer, or the right public defendant, you can maybe get away with it, not get away with it, but be exonerated for a crime you didn't commit. But if you don't, man, like it's the chips are so far against you. And in our country, we're taught that like ID witness testimony is like, excuse me, is like perfect. It's like no, it's like 95, 100% perfect. When studies have come out now saying that like no, like it's actually like at least one of the least reliable things you can use is like an ID thing, but that's always like the one of the
That's
things that people use.
Yeah, witness statements and IDs. That's like the least reliable
Yeah,
evidence you can have. People remember. Sometimes they're not even lying. Some people remember
yeah,
stuff differently.
yeah.
Sometimes it's pressure. Some of them want to be a part of the story.
Hmm.
There's a whole. It's a laundry list of reasons. Yeah.
We just need to better educate people on like how the criminal justice system works and how like uh just how it is, because our media doesn't do a good job of that. And
At
once
all.
I feel like, even though like a lot of Americans do support it, I feel like once we're able to like really start educating people more on this and educating people like on what's happening and educate people on people, you know, this many people actually being innocent, that could probably stem the tide on like death penalty and hopefully have some real criminal justice reform. But that's the hope. That's like a hope that things happen like that, but we'll see. I know the prison industry is like really profitable for a lot of people, so that's either it's going to be kind of hard.
Right. Yeah. That's sustaining whole towns right now, especially since globalization.
Exactly.
Um, and the downfall of the manufacturer
Hmm.
industry is prisons and defense contracts.
Yep.
Basically,
Yep.
the only mass manufacturing that we have left in this country.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's the truth. Yeah, we make guns in prisons.
pretty much. All right. Before we get out of here, I definitely want to give a shout out to. I don't know. Should I call him Reverend? Should we still call him Reverend Warnock, or should we call him Senator Warnock?
Put some respect in his name, man. He's a senator. He's U.S. senator.
All right.
Nothing wrong with being
So
reverend. I'm just saying.
yeah, Senator Reverend Warnock. Big shout out to him. It was big that the Dems were able to get those 2 Georgia seats,
Hmm.
um, because he put stuff in perspective when it comes to filibuster reform, and I like the way he put the heat on his fellow Democrats without calling them out by name, but we all know who he's talking about. Um, when he was saying on the Senate floor that yes, y'all want to protect the minority in the Senate, but you won't protect the minority in this country when it
Hmm.
comes to this filibuster. And for those who don't know, the filibuster is cloaked in racism. It all came about and was really started being used when there was protesting civil rights legislation, stuff like lynching bills, and that's when it really it really started becoming popular in the Senate. So it is
Well,
cloaked in racism, no matter what Mitch McConnell want to say.
and take it a step further, the guy who helped establish the filibuster, or the first aspect of it, was John C. Calhoun, Vice President John C. Calhoun, who was like a staunch racist, a staunch
Yep.
pro-slavery person from South Carolina, who eventually became vice president of the U.S. I think I'm blanking on the administration right now. He's president under, but he pretty much started the filibuster, and he was doing it for these very reasons of blocking slavery and so forth. So yeah, just kind of like think about that when people say, well, it's a and the sickest thing about the filibuster, which we always say, is it's not even, there's nothing in the Constitution that says it needs to be there. There's not a rule for it. It's not a law. It's just something that the Senate made up and can't get rid of.
Right. Right. And that was one of my other complaints about the Obama administration. We don't even have to give that's too long, but uh Obama, the administration, they never attacked the filibuster and why it was being used, which was a massive mistake. Would have like so many regrets during
That
that.
presidency was definitely like a missed opportunity, which I think people are now kind of like looking back on him like, but that's not a conversation I kind of want to have right now either. But
Yeah,
there's a lot of
yeah.
missed opportunities.
That's a whole show.
Yeah.
That's a whole show. The Obama administration has some pluses in there. There was some good things they did, but like you said, a lot of missed opportunities. it was a chance to transform this country, and is well. Let's
Some
get off of
people,
that. I'm ready to get off this.
I'll
This
just say this: some people aren't interested in transforming the country, and we have to kind of like accept that sometimes. That people aren't interested. They can be elected president and not be interested in that, and that's just the way it is. So,
But all right, don't make sure you follow. Say What I Mean on Instagram. Subscribe to the channel. Share. Who giving you content like this? Nobody. Follow the pod guy.
sure.
You got any last comments, Dean?
Good talk again, man. Yeah, just please be safe out there, everybody. You know, the mass shootings, America's opening back up. They're trying to advocate for that. So if you can get vaccinated, obviously do that. But they're trying to push for that now. And with that is returning of some of the normalcy that we were all craving a year ago, which shows that there's so many more things we need to get to and get going for. So just be safe out there, take care of yourselves. Just take care of yourselves, please, and be safe out there, and look out for other people as well if you can. So that's it.
100%, 100% co-sign that. All right, people. Peace.
Peace. Take care.